Write your title here. Her true story from Oregon. She donated her $875K house to charity when her daughter tried to steal it. I was folding laundry when I found out my daughter wanted me dead. Not in the way you think, not with a knife or a pillow in the middle of the night. Just slow, just quiet, just a legal document that said I was no longer fit to make my own decisions, that I was losing my mind, that I needed to be put away somewhere safe where she could manage my money for me. The laundry was warm from the dryer, a blue towel, one of his old t-shirts, the smell of fabric softener. I remember that smell so clearly because it was the last time anything in my life smelled normal. I was in the laundry room off the kitchen, the same laundry room where I had washed baby blankets 30 years ago, the same washing machine that survived 3 moves and 2 husbands. My hands were dry from the detergent. My back hurt from standing too long. I was 69 years old and my back always hurt now. The phone rang. It was my sister Carol. Carol never calls before noon. She knows I like my morning slow. But that day she called at 9:15. Her voice was tight, the kind of tight you get when you are holding something back. She said, "Have you talked to Amanda yet?" I said, "No, not yet. She usually calls me on her way to work." Carol said, "You need to call her right now." I said, "Why? What happened? Is the baby okay?" She said, "The baby is fine. It's not about the baby. It's about you. Have you seen an attorney named Mark Brenner?" I said, "No, I have never heard of that name in my life." She said, "He filed a petition in Lane County Court yesterday afternoon. Amanda and David are listed as the petitioners. They are asking the court to appoint Amanda as your guardian and conservator. They say you are suffering from severe cognitive decline. They say you are a danger to yourself. They say you cannot manage your own finances or make your own medical decisions." They attached a letter from a doctor I have never heard of, a Dr. Elaine Morris. They say she examined you last month. I sat down on the floor of the laundry room, right there on the cold concrete, the blue towel still in my hands. I said, "Carol, that is not true. I have never met any Dr. Morris. I have never been examined by anyone. I am fine. My memory is fine. I pay my bills. I drive myself to the grocery store. I take my blood pressure medicine every morning. I am fine." Carol was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I know you are fine, but they are asking the court to freeze your bank accounts. They're asking to take control of your house. They're asking for the right to make all your decisions for you. The hearing is in 10 days. You need a lawyer right now." I hung up the phone. I sat on the floor for another hour. The laundry got cold. The dryer beeped every few minutes to remind me it was done. I did not move. I just sat there with my back against the dryer and my legs stretched out on the concrete. I looked around the laundry room, the shelf with the bleach and the stain remover, the little plastic basket where I kept the loose buttons, the photograph taped to the wall, a picture of Amanda on her 5th birthday. She is wearing a pink dress and holding a cake with sprinkles. Her face is covered in chocolate frosting. She is laughing. She was such a happy little girl. That was the moment my life split in two. Before the phone call, after the phone call. Before I knew what my daughter thought of me, after I knew. I want to tell you the whole story, not just the betrayal, but the years before it. The years when I thought I had built something good. The years when I thought my family was my greatest accomplishment. Because you need to understand how hard I worked, how much I gave, how I poured every ounce of myself into those people. And then you will understand why I did what I did. Why I took my own house and gave it away to strangers. Why I emptied my own bank accounts and handed the money to people who would never know my name. Why I made sure my daughter got nothing. Not one brick, not $1, not one thread from that blue towel. I was born in 1955 in a small town outside Salem, Oregon. My father worked at the paper mill. My mother stayed home and raised 4 girls. We were poor, but we did not know it. Our house was small, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. A kitchen with yellow countertops that were cracked in 3 places. My mother cooked every meal from scratch. She sewed our clothes. She cut our hair in the kitchen with sewing scissors. We did not have cable television. We did not have a dishwasher. We did not have new shoes except once a year before school started. But we had each other, and my mother made sure we knew that was enough. She would sit on the edge of my bed at night and rub my back and tell me that family was the only thing that mattered. She said, "You can lose your money, you can lose your house, you can lose your health, But if you have family, you have everything. I believed her. I believed her so completely that I built my entire adult life around that belief. I married a man I thought would be a good father. I had children because I wanted to fill my house with love. I worked 2 jobs when my first husband left so the kids could stay in their schools. I remarried a good man, a steady man, a man named Tom who worked at the lumberyard for 32 years. He was not exciting, he was not romantic, but he was kind. He never yelled. He came home every night at 5:15. He fixed things around the house without being asked. He loved those kids like they were his own, even though they were not his blood. Tom and I bought our house in 1988. It was a small ranch on a half-acre lot, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a fireplace in the living room, a deck in the back that faced the woods. We paid $62,000. It was everything we had. Tom worked overtime for 3 years to save the down payment. I cleaned houses on weekends. We painted every room ourselves. We pulled weeds until our hands bled. We planted rose bushes along the driveway. We hung a swing on the big oak tree in the backyard. That house was not just a house. It was our proof that hard work meant something. It was our proof that 2 people could build a life together if they just kept showing up. Tom died in 2015, pancreatic cancer, 6 weeks from diagnosis to burial. He was 71 years old. He died in our bedroom with the windows open, the sound of birds outside, his hand in mine. I stayed in that house because I could not imagine leaving. Every room had him in it, his coffee cup still on the counter, his boots still by the back door, his chair in the living room still dented from his body. I would sit in that chair some nights and just close my eyes and pretend he had gone to the hardware store and would be back any minute. The kids were grown by then. Amanda was 42. She lived in Portland with her husband David and their 2 girls. My son Michael was 38. He lived in Arizona. He came home once a year for Christmas. He called every few weeks. We had a good relationship. Not close, but not broken. Just the normal distance that happens when children grow up and build their own lives. Amanda was different. Amanda was my shadow, my mini-me. My constant companion from the day she was born. She had my curly brown hair, my stubborn chin, my habit of biting her lip when she was thinking. She was the child who followed me around the kitchen while I cooked, the teenager who told me everything about her friends and her crushes and her dreams, the young woman who cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. She was mine. She was so deeply mine that I could not imagine a version of my life where she was not at the center of it. When Tom got sick, Amanda came down every weekend. She drove 2 hours from Portland with the girls in the back seat. She brought casseroles and magazines and crossword puzzles. She sat with Tom while I went to the grocery store or took a shower or just sat in the car and cried for 10 minutes by myself. She was there at the funeral, her hand in mine, her face wet with tears. She said, "Mom, you are not alone. You will never be alone. I will take care of you." I believed her. After Tom died, Amanda started coming down more often, every other weekend at first, then every weekend. Then she started staying for a few days at a time. She worked remotely so she could work from my kitchen table. She said she wanted to be close to me. She said she worried about me being alone in that big house. She said, "Mom, let me help you. Let me be here for you." I was grateful. I was so lonely after Tom died. The house felt like a cave. The silence was unbearable. I would wake up at 3 in the morning and walk from room to room just to hear my own footsteps. Having Amanda there was like having light in a dark room. She made coffee in the morning. She played music while she worked. She laughed with her girls on the phone. She filled that house with life again. David came sometimes too. He was a quiet man, tall, thin, bald on top with gray hair on the sides. He worked in finance, something with investments. I never really understood what he did. He was polite but distant. He would sit on the deck and look at his phone for hours. He never offered to help with dishes. He never fixed anything around the house the way Tom used to. But he made Amanda happy, and that was enough for me. In 2017, Amanda sat me down at the kitchen table. She had a spreadsheet printed out on 3 pieces of paper. She said, "Mom, we need to talk about your finances." I said, "Okay." She said, "You have the house, you have Tom's life insurance, you have his retirement account, but you are not earning new income. You are drawing down your savings. At this rate, you will run out of money in 12 years. I said, I am almost 65. I will be dead before the money runs out. She laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. She said, Mom, you cannot think like that. You could live another 20 years. You need a plan. I told her I did not want a plan. I told her I just wanted to stay in my house. I told her the house was paid off. The property taxes were low. I had Social Security. I had a small pension from Tom's work. I would be fine. She said, let me help you manage it. Just let me look at your accounts once a month. Let me make sure nothing falls through the cracks. You know I am good with numbers. You know I would never do anything to hurt you. I said, okay. That was my first mistake. That was the crack in the door. That was the moment I gave her permission to step inside my life and start moving things around. At first, it was fine. She would come over once a month. We would look at my bank statements together. She would ask me about bills. She would remind me to pay the property taxes. She set up automatic payments for my utilities. She helped me organize my paperwork. It felt good. It felt like having a partner again. It felt like being taken care of. Then she started asking for more access. She said it would be easier if she could log into my accounts online. She said she could pay my bills for me so I did not have to worry about it. She said, Mom, you are getting older. You forget things sometimes. Let me take this off your plate. I did forget things sometimes. Not big things, just small things. Where I put my keys, what day the trash went out, whether I had taken my morning pill or not. Normal things for a woman my age. But she made it sound like something more. She made it sound like I was slipping. She had a way of looking at me. A little frown, a little tilt of her head, like she was studying me. Like she was waiting for me to prove I was still capable. I gave her my passwords. I gave her access to my checking account, my savings account, my retirement account, my credit card. I signed a piece of paper that said she was authorized to speak to my bank on my behalf. She said it was just for convenience. She said it would make things easier for both of us. That was 2018. For the next 4 years, I lived in a dream. I thought everything was fine. I thought my daughter was taking care of me. I thought I was lucky to have her. I bragged about her to my friends. I told Carol how Amanda handled all my bills now, how she made sure I never missed a payment, how she was so responsible, so loving, so devoted. I did not notice that my checking account balance was getting lower. I did not notice because I never looked. She paid the bills. She told me how much I had left. She gave me cash when I needed it. $200 a week. That was my allowance. $200 to buy groceries and gas and the little things I wanted. I never questioned it. She was my daughter. She loved me. Why would I question her? I did not notice that she had added David to my accounts as a co-signer. I did not notice because I never looked at the paperwork. I just signed what she put in front of me. I trusted her. She was my baby. The same baby who held my hand on the first day of kindergarten. The same girl who cried when I dropped her off at college. The same woman who sat beside me at her father's funeral. Trust was not a choice. Trust was the air I breathed. The first crack came in the summer of 2021. I was at the grocery store. The woman in front of me at the checkout was someone I knew from church, Helen. She was a few years younger than me. She asked how I was doing. I said, fine. She said, I heard you are moving. I said, what are you talking about? She said, someone told me your daughter was putting the house on the market, that you are going to move into an assisted living place in Portland. I laughed. I said, Helen, that is not true. I am not moving anywhere. I am staying in my house until I die. She looked embarrassed. She said, oh, I must have heard wrong. I am sorry. I did not think much of it at the time. People talk, rumors spread. It was probably nothing. But something stayed with me, a small, cold feeling in my stomach. I drove home. I sat in my car in the driveway for a few minutes. I looked at my house. The rose bushes were overgrown. The paint was peeling on the shutters. The deck needed to be stained. But it was mine. It was Tom's and mine. The oak tree still had the swing. The kitchen still had the yellow countertops, just like my mother's kitchen from when I was a girl. This house was my memory box. Every scratch on the floor, every stain on the carpet, every nail hole in the wall from every picture I had ever hung, they were all pieces of my life. I went inside. I called Amanda. She did not answer. I left a message. Just checking in. Love you. Call me back. She called back 4 hours later. She said she had been busy with work. She asked if I needed anything. I told her what Helen said. She laughed. She said, Mom, you know how people gossip. Helen probably heard something from someone who heard something from someone else. It is nothing, I promise you. No one is selling your house. I believed her. The second crack came in the winter of 2022. I was looking for a birthday card for Michael. I went into the spare bedroom where I kept my desk. My desk was a mess. Piles of paper, old magazines, receipts from years ago. I started cleaning because that is what I did when I was restless. I opened the bottom drawer. There was a manila folder I had never seen before. It said Mom on the tab in Amanda's handwriting. I opened it. Inside there were bank statements. Not my normal bank statements. These were from an account I did not recognize. An account at a different bank. An account in Amanda's name and David's name. I looked at the transactions. There were deposits from my checking account. Large deposits. $5,000 here, $10,000 there. Recurring transfers every month. Money moving out of my account and into theirs. I sat there for a long time. I counted the transfers. Over the past 3 years, they had moved almost $120,000 from my accounts into theirs. The transfers were labeled as management fees, caregiver compensation,
administrative costs. I never agreed to any of that. I called Carol. I told her what I found. She said, "You need to call a lawyer right now." I said, "I cannot afford a lawyer." She said, "You cannot afford not to have a lawyer." I said, "Amanda would not do this to me. There must be an explanation. There must be paperwork I signed that I do not remember." Carol said, "Listen to me. I love you, but you are being blind. Your daughter is stealing from you." I hung up. I put the folder back in the drawer. I closed the drawer. I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea. I sat at the table and watched the birds at the feeder. I told myself Carol was wrong. I told myself Amanda would never hurt me. I told myself there was a reasonable explanation, and I just needed to ask her about it calmly. But I did not ask her. I was afraid. Not afraid of her. Afraid of what the answer might be. Afraid that if I asked the question, I would hear something I could not unhear. So I did nothing. I pretended I never saw the folder. I went back to my routine. Coffee in the morning, lunch at noon, the news at 5, bed by 9. A life that looked normal on the outside, but felt hollow on the inside, because I knew something I was not supposed to know. The third crack came in the spring of 2023. I was at a family barbecue at Amanda's house in Portland. Her backyard, her new patio furniture, her new grill, her new hot tub. Things she could not afford on her salary alone. David was flipping burgers.
The girls were playing in the grass. Amanda was drinking white wine and laughing with her neighbors. I watched her from a lawn chair. She looked happy. She looked comfortable. She looked like a woman who had no worries about money. My son Michael was there. He had flown up from Arizona. He sat next to me. He asked how I was doing. I said fine. He said, "Mom, you look tired." I said, "I am fine." He said, "Have you seen a doctor lately?" I said, "Why does everyone keep asking me that?" He said, "Because Amanda told me you have been confused. She said you forget things. She said you left the stove on overnight last week." I said, "Michael, that is a lie. I have never left the stove on in my life." He looked at me. His face was hard to read. He said, "Mom, I am just telling you what she said. She is worried about you." I said, "She is not worried about me. She is worried about my money." The words came out before I could stop them. Michael stared at me. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Nothing." I said, "Forget it." I stood up and walked into the house. I went into the bathroom and closed the door. I looked at myself in the mirror. An old woman with gray hair and tired eyes and wrinkles around her mouth. I did not recognize myself. Not because I looked different, because I felt different. I felt like someone who had been asleep for 5 years and was finally waking up. I started paying attention after that. Small things. Amanda would come to my house and go through my mail before I saw it. She would take certain envelopes into the bathroom with her and come out without them. She would make phone calls in the backyard where I could not hear. She would whisper to David in the kitchen while I was in a living room. Little things that I had ignored for years because I did not want to see them. In August of 2023, I drove to my bank. I walked in and asked to speak to a manager. A young woman named Jessica helped me. I gave her my ID. She pulled up my accounts. She looked at the screen. Then she looked at me. Then she looked at the screen again. She said, "Mrs. Campbell?" "Are you aware that your daughter is listed as a joint owner on all of these accounts?" I said no. She said she and her husband David are both listed as joint owners. They have full access. They have been making transfers, large transfers. I said, "How large?" She printed out a statement. Since 2018, they had moved almost $300,000 out of my accounts. Some of it was transferred to their accounts. Some of it was used to pay their credit card bills. Some of it was withdrawn as cash. I asked Jessica if I could remove them from the accounts. She said not without their signature. They were joint owners. The money was legally theirs as much as it was mine. I could close the accounts, but they would have to sign off on that too. I was trapped. The money was gone, and the legal structure Amanda had built meant I could not stop her without her permission. I walked out of the bank. I got in my car.
I sat in the parking lot for a long time. I did not cry. I just sat there, my hands on the steering wheel, the sun coming through the windshield, the radio playing some song I did not recognize. I felt empty, not sad, not angry, just empty. Like someone had reached inside me and pulled out my heart and my lungs and my stomach and left nothing but a hollow shell. I drove home. I went inside. I walked through every room. The kitchen, where I taught Amanda to make chocolate chip cookies. The living room, where she took her first steps. The bedroom, where she used to crawl into bed with me after a nightmare. The backyard, where she learned to ride a bike. The oak tree with the swing. Every memory I had was soaked in her. And she had taken everything I had left. Not because she needed it, not because she was desperate, but because she wanted it. Because she thought she deserved it. Because she thought I was too old and too stupid to notice. I called a lawyer the next day. His name was Robert Hayes. He was a small man with thick glasses and a soft voice. He listened to everything I told him. He took notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. He said, "Mrs. Campbell, I am going to be honest with you. What your daughter did is not illegal. You gave her access. You signed the paperwork. You authorized her to be on the accounts. It was foolish, but it was not criminal." I said, "What about the guardianship petition?" He said, "That is different."
That is a legal proceeding. You have the right to fight it. You have the right to a jury trial. You have the right to present evidence that you are competent. But it will cost you money. Money you do not have anymore. I asked him what he thought I should do. He took off his glasses and cleaned them with his tie. He said if it were my mother, I would tell her to fight. But if it were my mother, I would also tell her that fighting will break her heart. There is no way to win this without losing your daughter. There is no way to keep the house and keep her in your life. You have to choose, and you have to live with the choice. I went home. I did not sleep that night. I sat on the back deck and watched the stars. The air was cold. The trees were dark. The house was quiet behind me. I thought about Tom. I thought about what he would say if he were sitting next to me. He would say, "Do what is right." He would say, "Do not let anyone take what we built together." He would say, "I love you and I trust you, and I will be with you no matter what you decide." But Tom was not there. I was alone. I was 69 years old. I had $300 in my wallet. I had a house that was worth $875,000. I had a daughter who wanted to put me in a home and take everything I owned, and I had a choice. The hearing was set for October 15th, 10 days after Carol's phone call, 10 days after I sat on the laundry room floor with the blue towel in my hands. I hired Robert Hayes. He filed a response to the guardianship petition. He attached affidavits from my doctor, from my neighbors, from Carol, from the woman at the church who saw me every Sunday. All of them said I was competent. All of them said I was capable of making my own decisions. All of them said Amanda's claims were false. But Robert told me it did not matter. He said the court would appoint a guardian ad litem, a lawyer who would represent my interests. That lawyer would interview me, interview Amanda, review the medical records, and then make a recommendation to the judge. He said the system was designed to protect vulnerable adults, but it was also easy to manipulate. All Amanda had to do was find one doctor who would say I had dementia, one doctor who never met me, one doctor who would sign anything for a fee. I asked Robert if that was legal. He said it was not legal, but it happened every day. And by the time the court figured out the truth, the damage was already done. The money was already gone. The house was already sold. The old woman was already in a nursing home with a plastic bracelet on her wrist. I asked him what I should do. He said the only way to protect the house was to make sure Amanda could never get it. Not through the guardianship, not through my will, not through any legal mechanism. He said if you want to keep her from taking this house, you have to give it away. Not to a family member, not to a friend, to a charity. To someone who will never give it back. I thought about that for 3 days. 3 days of pacing my house. 3 days of looking at the walls and the floors and the ceiling. 3 days of remembering every moment I had spent in that house. The Christmas mornings, the birthday parties, the quiet evenings with Tom, the sound of Amanda's laughter echoing down the hallway when she was a little girl. I made my decision on the 4th day. I called Robert. I told him to draw up the papers. I was donating the house to a charity that built affordable housing for low-income families. I was donating the rest of my money to the same charity, every penny I had left. I was not leaving anything for Amanda. Not a lamp, not a rug, not a spoon from the kitchen drawer. Robert asked if I was sure. I said I had never been sure of anything in my life, but I was sure of this. The hearing happened on October 15th. I walked into the courthouse with Robert. Amanda was there with David and her lawyer. She looked at me like I was a stranger. No hello, no hug, no how are you doing, Mom? Just cold eyes and a tight mouth. The guardian ad litem interviewed me for an hour. She asked me questions about my daily life, my medications, my finances, my memory. She asked me what year it was, who the president was, what I had for breakfast. I answered every question correctly. She asked me if I understood what Amanda was trying to do. I said yes. She asked me how that made me feel. I said like my daughter had died and been replaced by someone who hated me. The judge read the guardian's report. He looked at Amanda. He looked at me. He said, "The court finds no evidence of cognitive decline. The petition for guardianship is denied. The petition for conservatorship is denied. The court orders that all financial accounts be returned to Mrs. Campbell's sole control within 30 days. Amanda's face turned red. She stood up. She started to say something, but her lawyer pulled her back down. David sat there with his arms crossed. He did not look at me. He looked at the floor. I walked out of that courtroom. I walked down the marble steps. I walked to my car. I got in. I sat there for a minute. Then I drove to the charity's office. I signed the papers. The house was gone. The money was gone. All of it belonged to strangers now. People I would never meet. Families who would never know my name. I drove to my house one last time. The new owners would take possession in 60 days. I walked through every room. I touched the walls. I opened the windows. I stood in the middle of the living room and turned in a slow circle. The fireplace, the bookshelf, the photograph of Tom on the mantel, the spot on the carpet where Amanda spilled grape juice when she was 3 years old. It was all still there. It was still mine for a few more weeks, but not really. It was already gone. I was just visiting. I packed a suitcase, a few clothes, some photographs, Tom's wedding ring, the blue towel from the laundry room. I locked the front door for the last time. I put the key in the mailbox. I got in my car. I drove to Carol's house. She had a spare bedroom. She said I could stay as long as I needed. That was 2 years ago. I am 71 now. I live in a small apartment above a garage in Carol's backyard. It is not much. 1 room, a bathroom, a hot plate, a bed. But it is mine. I pay $400 a month in rent. I buy my own groceries. I drive my own car. I take my own pills. I am still competent. I am still capable. I am still here. Amanda does not speak to me. She called once, a year ago. She was crying. She said, "I cannot believe you did that. You gave away my inheritance. You gave away my children's future. You are the most selfish person I have ever known." I did not say anything. I just listened. When she was done, I said, "I love you, Amanda. I have always loved you. But love is not the same as surrender." She hung up. I have not heard from her since. Michael calls once a month. He does not know what to say. He is caught in the middle. He loves his sister. He loves me. He cannot fix what is broken. I do not ask him to. I just tell him I am fine. I am fine. I am fine. 3 words that mean nothing and everything. Sometimes I drive past the old house. The new owners painted it blue. They put a trampoline in the backyard. They cut down the oak tree. The swing is gone. The rose bushes are gone. Everything I loved about that place is gone.
Just like my daughter. Just like my old life. Just like the woman I used to be before I knew what my family was capable of. I do not regret giving away the house. I regret giving away my trust. I regret believing that love meant never asking questions. I regret handing my daughter the keys to my life and expecting her to treat it like her own. The blue towel is folded on the foot of my bed. Tom's ring is in a box on the windowsill. The photographs are in an album on the shelf. That is what I have now. A few things. A small room. A sister who lets me stay. A son who calls once a month. A daughter who wishes I was dead. And a story that I will never stop telling, because someone needs to hear it. Someone needs to know that the people you love the most are the people who can hurt you the worst. Someone needs to know that trust is not a weakness until it is. Someone needs to know that you can lose everything and still wake up the next morning and decide to keep going. I am 71 years old. I am alone. I am not sad about it anymore. I am just tired. The kind of tired that does not go away with sleep. The kind of tired that sits in your bones and waits for the end. But I am still here. I am still standing. And every morning I make my coffee, and I look out the window at the trees, and I say, thank you for another day. Not because I am happy, but because I am alive. And being alive means I have not lost everything. It means there is still something left.
Even if that something is just me.